I'm so over scarcity that I literally bit my tongue as I said it. Like my body's literally repelling that word. I don't want to be a manifester. I want to be an allower. I want to allow God's source energy. I want to allow the universe. I want to allow all of my opportunities to be magnetized towards me. I'm here to trigger you because the truth is, spirituality isn't just about light and love. It's about standing in your power, cutting through the noise, and owning the shifts you know you need to make. You don't need another feel-good message. You need clarity, strategy, and activation. This isn't about waiting for alignment to hit you. It's about creating it, moving through the chaos, and stepping into your highest timeline. I don't do spiritual bypassing. I don't do vague advice. Welcome to At Spiritual Speed, a podcast for enlightenment. The irony that every day is free. You wake up and the day is free. You don't have to do anything to earn the day. It is literally given to you at the price of free 99. Yet we work so hard and we push and we push and we do our best to get validated and to prove that we're worthy of the day. We do our best to earn the day. The idea of deconstructing spirituality, deconstructing reality, deconstructing what you've been taught is reality is so big right now. Let's break it all down. Let's make it digestible. Let's push you past your limits. And by the end of this video, you're going to get the clarity and the guidance that I'm willing to bet you've been asking for. I want to give you an affirmation to start this podcast with. And I welcome you to journal. I welcome you to dig deeper. I welcome you to sit with the intentions of clarity and guidance. The affirmation is, I allow myself to experience joy, freedom, and a fun flow of life. A big realization that has just been in my mind is our error tends to lie in our effort. We try so hard to the point that we repel our manifestations, we repel our dreams, our goals, our aspirations. I'm going to literally take a couple pages from two books. The first one is The Power of Your Subconscious Mind by Dr. Joseph Murray. The second one is Ask and It Is Given by Esther and Jerry Hicks with the Teachings of Abraham. If you listen to my last podcast, you'll remember that I went to the Abraham Hicks workshop on January 11th. I ended up at that workshop because my nephew was 21 years old and unexpectedly passed away. And in that process, I'm sure you can imagine the thick of the grief that my family and I are in. I've never stopped. I have lost all my grandmas. I had one of my grandmas passed away November 5th. I was 7 months pregnant with my first child. That baby turned out to be born on my grandma's birthday, January 22nd. That grandma in particular was everything to me. Shortly after that, my other grandma passed away. Shortly after that, my other grandma passed away. So while I walked into motherhood, all the women that raised me left me. And there was recently a very popular psychic medium online that made a comment about the aggravation that she felt with individuals and coming to her for readings to speak with their loved ones that have passed on. And this particular psychic medium talked about how she was annoyed with how people were saying they lost their loved ones. And yes, as a psychic medium, as someone who communicates with people that have passed on, I understand essentially what she's saying because we know on a deeper level that we don't lose anybody. Those are still the human words that we use. And I still say I lost my nephew and I know he's not lost. He's the reason why I ended up at this Abraham Hicks workshop. He told me to stop. I realized I had to stop. I had an event planned that weekend and I canceled the event. I have never canceled anything in my life. I just a couple years ago lost my uncle, who was like a dad, who was a best friend, who was a motivator, who was a pusher, who was the most authentic and unapologetic person I've ever met in my life, and most likely will ever meet in my life. I didn't stop. I was with him in the ICU until he transitioned over. The next day, I went right to work like nothing happened. I was planning a funeral. I was fighting other family members in court. I was in that court situation for almost 2 years. I was in the thick of learning how to manage money, learning that I only know how to mismanage money. I quit my job. I went through so much, a divorce. I can go on and on and on. Do I have the worst life? Absolutely not. Have I been through a lot of lived experiences that should have broken me? Absolutely. And through all of that, I never stopped. Before this workshop and for my nephew, I stopped for the first time. As I got to that workshop, I sat down and I saw this book. And the irony is, I had this book. I've had this book for years and I've never read it. And I saw it at the workshop. Something in me said, you need to get this book. And this is the time for you to read it. I buy the book, I sit down at my seat, and I put my hand over it. And I said, God, let me open this book up to a page that is going to speak to me, something I really need to hear. And of course, because my life is just so divinely placed, I opened up the book and I read this exact page. It says, for you to understand and experience what you desire, you must understand that which you do not desire. For in order to be able to choose and focus, both must be present and understood. I wrote down the time that I read this book and it said 11:11 on 1/11/2025, the first page that I prayed and I opened up this book to. And then I went on to send my manifesting bestie a picture of this page. And I said, look at what this said. Then, of course, because divine timing is just the theme of my life, Abraham opens up this workshop and they're talking about what this exact page. Now, is it a coincidence? Absolutely not. Is it my guides, God, source energy, the divine working in motion through me? Absolutely. And that workshop continued to show me how God's source energy and all of my guides, all of my answers are within me. And if I can't find them within me, they're in reflections, they're in observations, they are in words spoken by other people. Because everyone on that stage answered every question I had. I didn't even have to get called on stage to hear my answer. I'm going back to the idea of least resistance, going back to the idea of when we fight a thought so much, even in a very common case, a very common situation that we all find ourselves in is we'll sit here and say, I don't want that, I don't want that, I don't want that. And I'm saying I don't want it. I'm rejecting it. I'm refusing it. But here's the thing, your error lies in your effort. And by rejecting it, by saying, I don't want that, I'm repelling it, you're aligned with it. So we're gonna go to another page on ask and it is given. Abraham says, harder they push against unwanted things, the more they achieve vibrational alignment with unwanted things. And in doing so, the more they invite unwanted things into their own experience. And as more unwanted things now manifest in their experience, they shore up their own belief, they prove it to themselves. They say they were right all along about how bad and invasive that unwanted thing was to begin with. In other words, the more you defend your own beliefs, the more the law of attraction helps you live it out. Now, your error lies in your effort. We sometimes are so obsessed with not having something that we're essentially calling that in. And that's where this podcast started. My spirit guides gave me a message and said, you are obsessing over it and you are not observing it. We are obsessors and we are not observing. If you were to observe the situation, you would understand that by obsessing over what you don't want, obsessing over your fear, you're calling in that exact thing. And I know that because I've done it so many times in my life, especially with dating. I was so scared of calling in a guy that was just like my dad. I was so scared of finding someone and them not wanting to be with me because I'm a single mom and I have two kids and I'm the sole provider for both those kids. That what did I do? I called in a guy that was just like my dad and ended up breaking up with me multiple times because he didn't want to be a stepdad. Do you see how I set myself up for failure? I say that to tell you and to remind you and to push you to stop obsessing and to start observing your life. Now, we have the ability to direct our own thoughts. It's a matter of your superpower being your choice. You have the option to reimagine things. You have the option to use your imagination. And the thing is, your imagination and your emotions are they're like neighbors. They're like, yeah, let's give them the example as if they are neighbors. That's the example Spirit's giving me right now. And we can very much imagine a better life. And in imagining a better life, we can consciously but subconsciously realign our emotions, because your emotions are your superpower. And that's something that Abraham Hicks talks a lot about, how your emotional guide system lets you know which way you're going. But let's bring it back and let's finish reading this one page from Ask and It Is Given. You have the option of remembering something as it actually occurred, or imagining something that pleased you, or remembering something that did not please you. Through this process, you are aligning with a specific vibration. So I want to remind you and push you again to align with the emotions, to align with the vibration that better serves your manifestations, your goals. Because when we wake up in the morning, when we wake up to this free day, we either tell ourselves we can, or we tell ourselves that we can't. We either tell ourselves that nothing is going to work for us, or that everything is going to work for us. And either way, you are right. Your word is your wand. The last quote from Abraham that I want to give you is, if we were standing in your physical shoes, our attention would be upon bringing ourselves into alignment with the desires and preferences that we have launched. We would consciously feel our way to alignment. Again, your emotions are your superpower. I have a whole tattoo. If you're watching the visuals, I have a whole sad girl tattoo because I am such a sad girl. And I've realized my whole life that my emotions are actually my authority, because in my human design, my authority is my sacral chakra. And if you're not familiar with your human design, I highly suggest getting a human design reading. But the human design, in your human design, you have an authority, and my authority is my sacral chakra. Your sacral chakra is all about your emotions. So think about it. It makes sense that my emotions, they have been an opportunity for me to grow, but my whole life I've seen them as obstacles when really they were opportunities. Because my emotions are my superpower, it is going to be one of my strongest areas, one of my most challenging areas to overcome. It's almost like you have to earn it. It's almost like you have to feel your way through it, like we just read. But I digress. We're going a little bit further, and we could talk about human design and chakras in another pod, but let's stay on track for now. I want to get back on track to the idea of your emotional guidance system, the idea of your error is in your effort, the idea of what we ask for is the vibration, is the alignment, is the reflection of what we're going to get in reality. We're going to take it to the power of the subconscious mind. And in this book, there's one paragraph and it reads, if you were getting into a taxi and if you gave half a dozen different directions to the driver in 5 minutes, he would become hopelessly confused and probably would refuse to take you anywhere. It is the same when working with your subconscious mind. There must be a clear-cut idea in your mind. You must arrive at the definite decision. When you come to that clear-cut conclusion in your conscious mind, your mind is then made up. And according to your belief, it is done onto you. But the idea is, if you're in a taxi and you're giving directions to somebody, if you give them a million directions, they're going to have no idea which way to go. They're going to be like, whoa, bro, hold on. I'm the taxi driver. You just got to give me the address and I know how to get us there. Another example, this is from Ask and It Is Given. Abraham talks about the GPS. So if you were to put in your GPS that you want to go to Chipotle, you're not going to press Chipotle, press go, and then sit here and look at the GPS every 3 seconds and think, is it getting me there? Is it going the right way? Is there a detour? What's going on? I'm willing to bet you're most likely going to press go and you're going to follow the directions, but you're not going to doubt it. You're not going to question it. You know, if there's a roadblock, the GPS is going to get you around it. You know, if there is too much traffic one way, the GPS is going to take you around it. You have this trust in GPS that it is going to get you to Chipotle. Now, I wonder and I ask, and I want you to reflect with the idea of, why do you not have that same faith in source God energy? Why do you not have that same faith with your own guidance system? It is the obsessive action. It is not the observing action. That there is a difference between the two. So we're going to go back to the power of your subconscious mind. This line reads, you did not get results because you indulged in the fear thoughts. We sit here and we think, I'm manifesting this amazing promotion at work, but we are so scared that we're not going to get it, that you are just shooting down what you are asking for. So yes, for a moment, you thought you were going to get something, but the fear, that fear took over. And we're not leaning into faith, we are leaning into fear. And one of them is lack, one of them is scarcity, and one of them is abundance for fun, for peace, for health, for wealth, for everything that you want. And I repeat again, your error lies in your effort. Where are you putting the effort? Even if you're trying to wish away all the bad stuff, you're on the vibration of bad and you're going to get that. And with that idea of your error lies in your effort, another quote from The Power of Your Subconscious Mind: trying to accumulate wealth by the sweat of your brow and hard labor is one way to become the richest man in the graveyard. You do not have to work yourself to the bone. That, if you're anything like me, and if you're watching this podcast, if you're listening to this podcast, I'm willing to bet a version of you is, you think that hustle culture is the only way. But think about it. Hustle culture works for some people. So I'm not going to sit here and say it's not a thing. But I think for people like you and I, it's more of the concept of we are in hustle culture because we come from scarcity, we come from lack. So we think that we have to work so hard to earn our day when our day is given to us for free. You do not wake up in the morning and have someone standing over you and say, okay, you woke up. Here's how much you got to pay me today. We get to just wake up and we get to be free. And the concept that a lot of us are working through right now, the challenge that a lot of us are working through right now is being, just being here and getting out of the hustle culture. Because again, I know I sound like a broken record, but I really need to infuse this in your DNA, in your memory. There is error there because you are working from lack, you are working from scarcity. And the last line from The Power of Your Subconscious Mind says, what you consciously affirm, you must not mentally deny a few moments later. This will neutralize the good you have affirmed. You're sitting here, ask, believe, receive, manifesting, manifesting. Stop saying you're a manifester. And how about say you're an allower? I am a magnet for all the fun, all the beauty, all the natural flow that life has to offer me. I don't want to be a manifester. I want to be an allower. I want to allow God source energy. I want to allow the universe. I want to allow all of my opportunities to be magnetized towards me. I don't want to chase anymore. I want to attract. So I ask you to dig a little bit deeper and look at why you are doing what you do and not the how. Why do you want that? Why is that your manifestation? How is it going to happen? Inspired action, not obsessive action. Obsessive action is lack and scarcity. That was a tongue twister. I'm so over scarcity that I literally bit my tongue as I said it. Like my body's literally repelling that word. Inspired action. Inspired action is I am picking up my mic, I'm plugging it into my laptop, and I'm pressing record. Obsessive action is who's going to watch this? How am I going to get it in front of everyone? How am I going to get 10,000 viewers so Spotify will bump my podcast? How, whatever. Do you even see how just anxious that sounds versus the joy that comes from my soul when I plug up my mic and I open up my books or I sit down with my guests and I just talk? I let source God energy talk through me. I let the divine talk through me. I allow myself to be a channel for source God energy. I allow who needs to hear this podcast align with me and find it. If I have 10 people that listen, that is 10 souls that by the grace of God have been shifted in the best way possible by listening to my guests or listening to myself. The beginning of this podcast, where I talked about to know what you do want, you have to know what you don't want. And that comes with lived experiences. As human beings, we can get so caught up in why is this happening? Why is this happening? Because there's a muscle that is trying to get built up. I trust that you're going to use your imagination properly. I trust that you're going to think outside of the box. I trust that you're going to push yourself to get out of the obsessive action and get into inspired action. I trust that you're going to push yourself to observe and to not obsess over what is going on in your life. And I am so grateful for this space. I am so grateful for this beautiful, humble beginning and the fact that I get to take inspired action. I built this podcast out of necessity to build community. I built this podcast out of a necessity to connect community. My intention here is to inspire you to dig a little bit deeper and get to the root of why you're operating the way that you are and to realize that you should get out of obsessive action and into inspired action. Go from being a manifester to being an allower. I allow my abundance to be magnetized towards me. Reprogramming your thought process, you're going to completely shift your reality. When you understand how powerful the subconscious mind is, who were you before they dimmed your light because you were too bright for their darkness? Use your imagination until your big dream feels so familiar that its manifestation is the next logical thing. And of course, it's from Abraham Hicks because you know how much I love them. Get comfortable with the idea that we need to reprogram our subconscious. Get comfortable with the idea that we don't have to be in this hustle culture to get what we want. Get comfortable with the idea that we can take inspired action and not obsessive action. I'm going to leave you with one last piece of inspired action that a former coaching client gave me. Something about me is I activate intuition. We're all intuitive. We all have it within us to tap into source God energy. But something about my clients that work with me is they get activated on a deep level intuitively. And I'm gonna put a screenshot right here of a client that connected with my Nana that had passed on years ago. And because I am talking about hustle culture and you don't have to earn the day, I'm going to share her message that my Nana gave me. This was back in April of 2024. And here's the thing, it is just hitting me. It is literally just hitting me that I need to get out of hustle culture and I need to get into just being culture is what I'm going to wrap up this podcast with. Is I could give you all the insight. I could give you a million readings. I could give you a million coaching sessions. I could pull a million tarot cards for you. If you're not ready to apply what I am teaching, if you're not ready to really take the accountability and the awareness serious, this means nothing. Because, like this client of mine that gave me this message almost a year ago, and it didn't click until now, the message will not make sense until you're ready to accept it. So I trust and I believe and I pray that you find your version of accountability and awareness so that you're better able to allow the abundance to be magnetized to you, because we don't chase, we attract. I truly appreciate your views. I truly appreciate the fact that you took time out of your day to invest in yourself. You're in the longest relationship with yourself. Invest wisely.
You've been in this space for a while. Next time we got to come tell your story or go live or something, because I know you have an interesting journey, an interesting path. I believe your story will help a lot of people as well when you start to talk about the world you came from too. So.
The divinity in me sees a divinity in you. Peace out.